Welcome, comrade. The glorious state sent me to educate you about the tyrants known as the House of Romanov. They oppressed the people for 300 years before they were finally overthrown. We will begin with the first Romanov, Michael I, and end with Nicholas II. First Romanov, Michael I, ruled as Tsar from 1613 to 1645. He was gentle and pious, and was elected by National Assembly. During his reign, Russia's borders grew greatly, due in part to glorious conquest against Serbia. After Michael's death, his son Alexis I took power and ruled from 1645 until 1676. Alexis pushed to make peace with the Polish, choosing to strengthen the army with military reforms. Did need to deal with many rebellions. After he died in 1676, his son Fyodor III became Tsar and ruled until 1682. Fyodor supported westernization in Russia, which paved way for later Tsar. Talk about that later. Fyodor died childless, and instead of forming glorious communist state, stupid Russian government simply just make his brothers Peter I and Ivan V rule as co-monarchs. Starting with less important, Ivan V was sheep, letting Sister Sophia do all of ruling for him, showing how weak of ruler he was. Unlike his pathetic brother, Peter I did not let his sister rule, and in 1689 he took over and forced Sophia out of power. He then started to westernize Russia, forcing the people into a modern age. He waged war with Sweden and built glorious city of St. Petersburg, or as we now know it, Leningrad. He built a great navy for Russia and pushed for many reforms. However, conveniently, said reforms did not include freedom for serfs. After Peter I died in 1725, his wife Catherine I took over as first female Tsar. Her rule was very uneventful, last 2 years until 1727. Very uneventful rule, unimportant. Next, Peter II became Tsar. He was average run-of-mill tyrant. He tightened iron grips around serfs by stopping them from entering military. But he died in 1730. After his death, the throne went to Ivan V's daughter Anna. She was not good Tsar. Like her father, she didn't feel like ruling and let someone else do it for her. She let lover Ernst Johann Biron rule for her, and he ruled country terribly. Her rule referred to his dark era, for good reason. She died in 1740, and was such bad Tsar that she named lover's son Ivan VI to be successor. Was stupid plan, because Ivan was baby. Baby cannot rule country. Adult can barely rule country. Needs strong communist state with strong, decisive ruler to lead country. About 1 year after this embarrassment named Tsar, Peter I's daughter Elizabeth deposed Ivan VI, and Russia no longer have baby as monarch. Starting her rule in 1741, Elizabeth was first decent Tsar since Peter I, and ruled Russia with great competence. As tyrants go, not worse Tsar. Moving on. After she died in 1762, throne given to Peter III. Peter III was idiot! Was terrible Tsar! So terrible! Baby Tsar! Ruled longer and better than he did. he signed stupid treaty with Prussia and threw away perfect opportunity to defeat foes of motherland because Peter III was Prussia fanboy. Thankfully, he was assassinated, and his far more competent wife Catherine II took power. After the death of her husband Peter III in 1762, Catherine the Great became Tsar. She made Russia much larger, crushing Polish cowards and securing warm water port from Ottomans in the Black Sea. Military conquest will be remembered throughout all history, but do not think for a minute she deserves title of Great. She makes things worse for serfs, ruling as tyrant. Her rule lasts very long time, until 1796 when she died of stroke on toilet. Then her son Paul I became Tsar. He followed in father's footsteps as terrible Tsar. He hated his mother for all the things she had ever done and tried to ruin absolutely everything she had built. He successfully made it so only men can rule Russia. And he buried his mother next to his father. Thankfully, 5 years after his coronation, in 1801, he was assassinated, as he deserved. Alexander I then took power. He had liberal beliefs, and even considered abolishing serfdom, but never took action. This shows why we need strong communist state to truly thrive. Alexander did, however, fight off Napoleon Bonaparte using the scorched earth policy, similar to how our great leader Stalin fought off the Germans at Stalingrad. Alexander died in 1825, allowing his son Nicholas I to retake power. Much like Second Nicholas, he ruled as tyrant. His aggressive foreign policy showed this ruthlessness. He tried to rule with iron fists, but in 1855 he thankfully caught pneumonia and died, putting an end to his reign of terror. Then Alexander II became Tsar. He was a decent leader. He pursued expansion, attacking the lesser nations with the glorious Russian military. And in a selfless display of kindness, he abolished serfdom, freeing the people from the slavery they had endured for centuries. However, in 1881, after several failed attempts, assassins succeeded in taking the Tsar's life. Then his son, Alexander III, took power. While he is often known as man of peace due to his lack of military conflict, do not be fooled! He was a brutal tyrant who ruled with iron fist. He reversed many of his father's great reforms and plunged Russia back into an age of tyranny. His greatest crime, however, was fathering the final Tsar of the Romanov tyrants, who took power after his father's death in 1894. Alexander III's son, Tsar Nicholas II, was the first Tsar to ever curse Russia with his leadership. He lost Peter I's great navy to Japan after idiotic invasion. He killed his own people when they protest in 1905 during Bloody Sunday, and he sent hundreds of millions of his people to die in the Great War. To finance said absurd war, he prints absurd amount of money. Due to either his stupidity or his simply evil nature, he overlooked the fact that this would cripple the economy for years to come. After this, there was terrible inflation, causing many workers to be unable to afford food, but Tsar Nicholas and his wicked family lived in luxury all around them, people starved! This forced the people to finally rise up, and in March of 1917, the new order overthrew the tyrants that had ruled Russia for 300 years. But said new order was weak, and in November of 1917, during the October Revolution, Lenin and his Bolsheviks overthrew the new order, and the glorious Soviet Union was born. And after new and glorious order was formed, Nicholas and his corrupt family were finally, permanently removed from power. On July 17th, 1918, justice was served to the tyrannical Romanov family, and Russia's freedom from the Romanovs was ensured. And with that, the Romanov dynasty was ended, and in its place rose the great Soviet Union. This lesson brought to you by Ministry of Education.